Okay, here we are for another session of Online World History. Um, Title this one Meso Empires or Mesopotamian Empires. Okay, we're going to look at some of the empires that are going to rise out of the Fertile Crescent region and make sure that you answer the short questions on a separate sheet of paper. Let's go. Alright, when y'all think of the old Babylon, Babylon was a real place, okay, here in Sumer. Alright, right down the street from old Ur, which we learned about yesterday. Now, getting a closer look here, one of the first empires that are going to develop is going to develop in a little place called Akkad. Okay, now the Akkadians are going to come to dominate the entire region. That is, they're going to conquer city by city by city, and it's going to be led by a guy named Sargon. All right, he builds the world's first empire. All right, now make sure you get this. I don't really care if you know who Sargon is, but I do want you to know what the word empire means. Okay, so this is when you take a bunch of city-states and you put them under the leadership of one person. All right. Now, if you have all these different and diverse groups of people under the leadership of one person, the problem is, how do you control and rule these people in a way that they would think was fair? In comes a leader named Hammurabi. All right, now Hammurabi was a Babylonian. Okay, so later on, it's going to shift. Power is going to shift to the Babylonians, and there's going to be a leader named Hammurabi. All right, he's going to become extremely important, so I do want you to know him. All right, and this is actually a statue that he would have outside of every city he ruled. This is Hammurabi here receiving the law code from the God of law. All right, and this is actually the law code here. Okay, so right outside the city, all of the laws would be written on this law code. So you were held responsible if you walked into those city gates to know this law code. You know, to know what you can do, cannot do, and if you do break it, what the penalty is. Example, that if a man has stolen a pig that belonged to the temple, then he shall repay the pig 30 times its cost. All right, and again, the interesting part was not necessarily the penalty, but was that it was spelled out. All right, every place that Hammurabi controlled had the same set of rules. All right, so instead of being ruled by a local ruler, you know, and you went according to the whims of that ruler, everyone was ruled by a systematic law code. Here's another one. Now these are straight from Hammurabi's code. If a woman wanted a divorce, that was something she had to do. All right. But now she could get a divorce in this day and time. All right. Now notice that she would return back to her father's home. However, if a man wanted a divorce and the woman was at fault, that is, she did something like cheat on him or something, she was thrown in the river to drown. Now, I didn't say it was fair, but it was written. All right, the old eye for an eye, this is where it comes from, Hammurabi. And I got a few questions for you. I want you to answer these 3 questions, and here is a a sample of his law code to help you. Now, the next great empire in this area are the Assyrians. Now, the Assyrians were probably one of the most dominant groups in the area. All right, they were warriors. Their whole society was built around war. In fact, in order to become a man in Assyrian society, you had to kill a lion. Okay, now the Assyrians are going to even build a bigger empire. All right, here's the old Babylonian Empire in dark green, and here's their capital here. They established it at a city called Nineveh. All right, but they're going to conquer all of the dark green and then all of the light green as well. And notice that the Assyrians are going to expand into Egypt. All right, for a time they had control of Egypt, and they also had control of this little place here, Judah. All right, that's going to become important later on. Now, the Assyrians glorified military strength, and the key to their success was this: they had iron weapons. Most other places were still using copper weapons, all right, a softer metal, while the Assyrians moved on and began to smelt iron. All right. Now, in order to control all of the territory that they conquered, they used terror. All right. That is, you're going to do what I say, and if you don't, I'm going to bring holy hell to your doorsteps. That was the way the Assyrians ruled their empire. And I want you to see here, they're going to build this huge, as much as they were about military strength, they built this huge library, the first of its kind. And it's going to contain the world's first novel, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which you learned about yesterday. All right, it was actually found here in the largest library of its time at Nineveh. Now, later on, we get a new empire. Now, this empire is going to be totally different than the Assyrians, and it's going to be bigger, and it's going to last a lot longer. It was the Persian Empire, and it was founded by a guy named Cyrus the Great. And what he's going to stress is tolerance of other cultures. Tolerance of other cultures. All right, that's going to be unique to the Persian Empire. One of the rulers of the Persian Empire is going to build these, what they call the Hanging Gardens, and we'll get a little bit more information on that. Now, probably their most successful ruler is going to be Darius the Great. Alright, now Darius established something called a tax system. Alright, this is going to be extremely key in his success. He's going to divide the empire into provinces. Okay, like today you would call them like states. Okay, like within the United States, we divide our country into states, and then we divide our states into counties. All right. He's going to build a road system called the Royal Road. That's going to be extremely important. All right, the Royal Road is going to allow communication to develop between the different cities. He's going to establish a postal system, and he's going to standardize money. All right, and by when I say standardized money, that means now we're going to be able to use money. The money that's being used in one city is now going to be able to be used in another city. That's going to be important. Okay, in order to make sure it all worked, he developed this network of spies called the King's Eyes and Ears. Okay, they reported back to the king anyone who wasn't following his edicts. Okay, that concludes our series on the Mesopotamians.
We've been driving around from one end of this town to the other and back, but no one's ever seen us driving our Econoline van, and no one's ever heard of our band. We're the Mesopotamians, Sargon, Hammurabi, Ashurbanipal, and Gilgamesh, and they wouldn't understand a word we say, so we'll scratch it all down into the clay, half believing there will sometime come a day someone gives a damn, maybe when the concrete has crumbled to sand. We're the Mesopotamians, Sargon,